All right, happy Monday, happy start of the new week, everybody. Thank you for joining the stream. First things first, shout out to the stream sponsors over at CoinCatch and Tealstreet. These are two of the platforms that I am using consistently on a daily basis, one for trading and one for kind of looking at some price action based off of some LTF, low time frame, level 2 levels. This has really kind of been my bread and butter as far as low term time frame trading. But just getting into our analysis, guys, we're going to go over BTC first and kind of go over what we have to offer as far as levels to be looking to short into, looking to long into, that sort of thing. And as of right now, not much has changed. There was this NPOC print that happened over the weekend that kind of gave us that short-term directional bias that we kind of talked about to the downside. You know, as far as the most recent NPOC print goes, that's normally when you get that short-term directional bias. If the day closes and NPOC is right around here at like 40,707 and price is still below it, then that gives us a directional short-term bias of up, right? It really just depends on the way that you like to use them. And this is just a guide for me to think, okay, now that we have some NPOC prints to the downside, maybe we see a retest of that downside before we see up, or, you know, vice versa. If it's below and if it's above, then maybe we see short-term directional biased up before below. So it's just kind of a way that I like to read market sentiment, and it comes off volume inflow. So the first thing that we kind of want to talk about is just the obvious support that is just kind of holding, but it's also not holding. There's been no reaction out of 40,000. It's been very, very minimal. We did see a little bit of reaction out of this wick that was happening on Friday. I think it was Thursday and Friday. Got a wick down, and then we had a nice recover, and it actually ended up, you know, looking okay. But, you know, looking at the low term time frames, we saw that, you know, there was the lows from the start of the week previously, and we kind of retested those lows, kind of turning it into resistance, and then we kind of had some more downside. So on the low term time frames, it hasn't really been long all right away. You know, even though I've been taking some longs, it kind of is what it is. That's just kind of the name of the game with trading, right? So if you took a long back here and you kind of round tripped it down to these levels, then it doesn't mean that the trade is wrong or invalid. It just means that maybe you mistraded it a little bit, right? And so that's kind of what I say when sometimes it takes a couple of attempts and a couple of stabs at the trade to get it right. So I'm okay with taking two losses at 5 to 6% and capturing that one big winner for like 30, 40, 50%. So that's kind of the way that my mind works. Just because I take a loss on a trade doesn't mean I completely veer away from the setup, doesn't mean that I completely veer away from the overall structure that we're looking at. It just means that maybe I mistraded it, right? Maybe I didn't give myself enough breathing room to dollar cost average down. Maybe I was too overexposed too soon, used too much leverage. There's a lot of variables and a lot of factors that go into a single trade. And so for me, guys, I am not keen on being perfect on these trades. I do not think that you should be perfect, right? You know, there are amazing traders out there that have 60, 65% hit rates that are some of the most profitable in the world. You do not have to get every trade right. And so that is kind of the theme going into today, right? Just because I took a couple losses does not mean that it deters me away from longing into support, because Bitcoin is at a support level. Whether we want to believe it or not, even on the medium term time frame and on the low term time frame, that 40K level is a support level, and it's not reacting very well right now, but that doesn't mean that it won't react later. So even then, we've talked about potential wicks down and getting acceptance back into this range, and that is still a possibility. You know, based off of some NPOC levels, we can kind of just start to go into some of these right here. We do have some NPOC levels above, which I would like a retest of those to get short into. I don't see any reason to short down in this level to kind of capture that 38K move. That just doesn't make sense to me. I would much rather get a retest of higher and then look to short into some of these NPOC levels before we potentially see lower. And so that is currently just my thought process going forward. It's hard to chase. Yes, I did take some shorts today on the Castillo AI trading and ended up being profitable. And even I took that long on API 3 on Friday that really, if I had left it open, it would have been a 500% banger. So that trade alone has kind of saved me throughout some of the losses that I've had the past week or so, just because it was such a good trade that happened. You know, that's what happens, guys. You go through a couple losses, you go through some winners. You know, sometimes the streak is good. Sometimes you can go 5 and 6 winners in a row, but sometimes the streak is just bad. And, you know, unfortunately, I took a couple losses trying to long the support level. But again, it doesn't deter me away from much, right? We are still watching Tealstreet to see how things react. I think as of right now, for me to really consider longing BTC and Ethereum is I want a capitulation wick, just a wick that freaks everybody out that we can kind of get ourselves positioned and long into. And we've talked about that before. So our next area of interest to long based off NPOC levels is going to be that 38,000. Now, we have been wanting this 38,000 for a while now. So since 12/11, we wanted a long, and then also since 12/4. So since the beginning of December, so I think it's almost been 2 months now, we've wanted to long 39,467, 38,807, 377 and 38,356. Those are the NPOC levels that, in my opinion, are really kind of holding the support, and that is a area of untapped liquidity that I think could get a good retest in, and potentially a good buy opportunity. And we've talked about the deviation below here, right? We had a deviation above upper limit current range with acceptance back in, and this is kind of the same thing, right? Unfortunately, I wasn't short heavy enough. The reason that I didn't short into this mostly was because I wanted a retest here. I would have loved a retest of this level, and then we kind of started to collapse down, but really there was just no strength, and it's kind of just like slowly rolled over into some of our lower limit levels and that sort of thing. Regardless, it doesn't deter anything away from me. I still would like a capitulation down to close those NPOC levels with acceptance back into current range, and then we can potentially talk about this 32,636 and this 42,636 and 45,969. That is the area, in my opinion, that I would really consider to be shorting again next. Going into ETH, this is what we're looking at right here. So this is kind of a hard one, right? Because we had been wanting to long 2388 NPOC for a bounce, and it hasn't really offered us a good reaction so far. But also, this is kind of why I put the long in the middle, is because this is just, in my opinion, a decent area to be starting a position, right, on Ethereum, because this is clearly a very key area of price action before we got a leg higher. And so if we retest into that, I think that, again, it's going to be a good area no matter what, because just like the BTC scenario, Ethereum is coming down into a support level. So if you get an entry here, or you get an entry at the exact bottom at 2268, it's not really going to matter if we retest this 2550 or even this 2600 area. It's not going to matter where your average is in this area. All that you know is that you're going to be profitable on the move higher. So I challenge you guys to not be so obsessed with the fact that you have to catch a top or bottom within some of these trades, right? Because it's just not the case. And even for me right now, this long, I still am considering to re-long both BTC and Ethereum, regardless if I've closed a couple trades out and they were for losses, or regardless if I got kind of shaken out for small profits. It doesn't matter to me. This is still the same setup regardless what has happened over the weekend. Yes, the weekend price action has been ass, and we should note the weakness on the weekend and the weakness going into the start of the new week, but that doesn't mean anything, right? Like I said, there's a lot of narratives floating out there about what is happening with the ETF, what is happening with GBTC, what is happening with Barry Silbert, and all this type of shit, right? And so for me, guys, I try not to get too caught up in that. I try and just stay true to my technicals. Staying true to my technicals is just showing that Ethereum is at somewhat of a support level in this area. Whether it digs deeper than the support that we want, it's just one of those areas that, you don't really need to get extremely bearish out of, because if you think about it, what happens when resistance breaks above and turns to support? Well, that support's retested, right? So this was once resistance, just based off candle closes, resistance, candle that broke above, and then now resistance becomes support. And what are we retesting? Support. So again, I know, I kind of probably sound like a broken record. I've kind of talked about this a lot as far as, we're at support, but it's just hard for me to get on board to short here. Regardless if you think 2268 is coming, I would much rather, again, same scenario as BTC. If I do want to short, I want to get a discount on my short. So I don't want to be shorting here. I would like a retest of this before lower. So this would be my next short entry on Ethereum. And really, I have honestly fucked up on Ethereum by not taking the short entries that I have, and we'll look at those in just a second. This is the next short entry on Ethereum. Let's go to the 4 hour, because that's what we look for. Come over here, make sure that we stay organized and create the game plan for 1/22 short. And so this is what we overall look for, right? We want a discount on those shorts if we do continue lower, right? I'm not going to short here into something that has already dropped. Even just from this area, it's dropped already for almost 5% on Ethereum. So I just don't like chasing that, and that's just me personally. I think that there's a lot of people that will chase into this and they will make profit. So I'm not saying that it's wrong to short into something like this. All I'm saying is, for me, for my strategy, is I like to kind of take the opposite, long when people are scared, short when people are happy. And unfortunately on Ethereum, I did not capture the short plays that were there. We had a perfect short entry based off NPOC levels that I just did not short. It was 2596. We retested that area, and I created this back within some of this price action once this print had happened on January 12th, right? We get a retest of that and we short into it, and I didn't short it, right? So I was a big miss by me on shorting Ethereum. So could be me coping that I didn't get the shorts that I wanted, but at the end of the day, it's still just the price action. And again, 2690, another perfect NPOC pivot. These are the two that, you know, really has sucked that I missed on the short entry. But again, it's just the same game plan as going forward, especially on this 116 short. This is the exact same setup, just a little bit lower, right? Wanting a retest of this NPOC level to short into, same thing. Wanting a retest of this NPOC level to short into, because when that print happened and these levels were here, I think a lot of people were expecting and shorting to the downside, wanting a drop to where we are now. But really, the ideal scenario was we bounced first, closed this NPOC level, and then we had the drop. So that's kind of essentially what I'm looking for again on this setup as well, where I think people want lower right here, but a better trade is to have patience for this short entry at this 2474 NPOC level before we get that downside. And that's where I'll be looking to short next on Ethereum. BNB USDT. Yeah, I mean, I think that CZ held 200 pretty well. I don't know, like altcoins are too. This is a tough one. I think like for me, I see a clear range here that we're kind of at the top of that I really wouldn't want to be longing into. I would much rather long a retest of this or a retest of this. But at the end of the day, I still think BNB, if BTC continues to kind of get its head out of his ass and, you know, Ethereum can kind of do the same thing, I think that, you know, it's possible for some more upside. Again, I hope that you guys enjoyed the stream. I hope that you guys are enjoying the Telegram, that you're enjoying the Castillo AI trading tools. And, you know, I will see you guys over in the Telegram. Peace.